beautiful evening and a beautiful sight, even if the mosquitoes have suddenly realised that I've turned up again. But ignoring those pesky mosquitoes, I'm back here at Misson, Carr, and I'm hoping that we get a few moths tonight. It's a beautiful night. I know the temperature is going to drop a little bit, but it's going to remain in double figures, so conditions should be perfect. And as you can see, there's not a breath of wind or even the slightest of breezes, unlike last time I came here, which seemed such a long time ago. I think it was just about the first week of June. Don't know where it's gone to, but hopefully we will catch a few moths. I'm deciding whereabouts to set up. The sheet will go over the gate as is normal here, and I'm hoping for a good range of species and not too many mosquito bites. I like these pre-generated turn-on moments. I do get here a little bit too early, but that's because I like to get here in daylight. Having to come through a farmyard, at least they can see who it is in daylight that's coming through. But I enjoy this peace and quiet, and that's something that, I don't know, it's been a funny day today, and I really felt the need to want to come out here this evening. So here I am. I love this solitude. I think here is as near to solitude as you can possibly get in Nottinghamshire. It's not just in space where apparently nobody can hear you scream, it's Misson Carr as well. But any screams, I can assure you, will be screams of delight. Who knows what's going to turn up? Well, we're off and running, and no moths in as yet, but on the plus side, very few mosquitoes are on my head. I have donated blood to several, but I'm looking forward to tonight, to this session. I know it's not going to be a patch on this place last year, and we all know how it was then. If you don't, have a look back at some of the old moth trapping videos from Misson Carr from 2023. But I'm hopeful that I have a really good night tonight. We'll see what transpires, but I just love coming to this place, I must admit. It's still very much an unknown quantity to me, although I've got a mental list of the species recorded here, and there's a few more that I'm wanting to tick off. Well, I've left it a while for numbers of moths to build up, and there's no big build up of numbers of moths, but a fair range of species, and we're just about an hour into this session, and 34 species are in the notebook, and one micro moth which is going home with me to be identified tomorrow. Nothing unusual in what's come in as yet, but early days, and the temperature is now at 13 centigrade, so still a very pleasant evening. But the moths that have come in of potential interest. Species like blackneck. Now blackneck's a moth, quite interesting, was regarded as being quite uncommon at one time, but in the last sort of 10-15 years or so has increased greatly at many sites through the county, often sometimes disturbed during the day from grassy sites, but just the one which has turned up this evening. As I just go down the list and pick out a few out, probably fen wainscot on a Nottinghamshire level is perhaps the most interesting. Now it's a very bland looking moth, and many wainscots are, but this is quite identifiable by its blandness because it has a certain sheen to it. I'll try and film it in a minute. It is settled down on the sheet, but it's one of those moths that you try and turn all the wainscots into in the hope that you've got a fen wainscot, but it's one of those species that once you see it you know that you've got it. It has a lovely golden sort of glossy sheen to it, and that's the easy way that I identify it by. But apart from that, not a lot else in the macro department. And in the micro department, Apotamus semifasciana. Now Misson Carr is about the only site in Nottinghamshire where Apotamus semifasciana occurs, if I remember rightly, and it's not the most gloriously attractive of micros. It's basically a grey micro with just a dark patch on each of the forewings. Not a lot you can say about it, but it is rare and unusual. It's very much a sort of wetland carland species, so quite at home here. Of other micros, Crambus pascuella, which isn't one of the grass veneers, not one that I catch very often, but did have one at home recently. And going through the list, one of the nicest moths that you get this time of year is mother of pearl. I'll drop a photo in a mother of pearl because I do like it, and it's one of those moths that's very aptly named, and you'll see why when you look at the photo. And that's about it out of the 34 species. V-pug is another one, and I mention that because it's a green moth and I love green moths. So you're probably looking at that now, and it's a case of going around the sheet now, seeing what's come in, but no great numbers of anything. Large twin spot carpet I can see is on the sheet, and a few micros that I need to grab and have a look at, but it's a very pleasant session minus the numbers of last year. Now here's a real beauty, one of my favourite macro moths we have, and this is a buff arches. Now a lot of people failed to record this species last year in Nottinghamshire, but I did quite well for it here. Seem to think I had 7 on one of the nights that are trapped here at Misson Carr. This is the only one that's in tonight, and I'm pleased to see it because it really is an absolute beautifully marked moth. Fabulous thing. It will turn up in garden traps. It's by no means uncommon, but some years, like many species, it just suffers from a drop in numbers. But a lovely moth to get nonetheless, and it will turn up in your garden trap at home, but not usually many of them. So that's buff arches. Always nice to see at the light, and always nice to see one settle down. They don't tend to do that. Now this isn't by any means one of the more colourful moths that I've showed you before on this channel, but this is a species which I haven't showed you. It's a pug, as many of you will know, and many of you will also be shouting out it's a white spotted pug, Trev, and indeed it is. There's a single sort of whitish spot on the thorax that you might be able to make out, but the main reason this is called a white spotted pug, and this isn't the most heavily white spotted individual that I've recorded, but there is the largest spot there on that part of the forewing, and in general 2 smaller spots between that white spot and the angle of the forewing. You can see them a little bit more on this side. As I mentioned, not the most spectacular of species, but I'm trying to show you something different here, and I have got something to show you shortly once it's settled down, something that I've never trapped before. I've seen it because somebody brought it me, but it's a species which is new to me. Well, we're just hitting midnight and just had a little period of drizzle. It's not been too much and not sort of caused any cause for concern, so to speak, and moths, or more moths, are starting to come in now. Quite a decent range. We're heading towards 60 odd species. A few micros still to go through, and there's one that looks interesting that I can see on the sheet now that I haven't recorded as yet. There's a large emerald flying around somewhere which has just come in. They don't seem to be very common here at all, and what's recently come in is the first large elephant hawk moth. So time for a wander around the sheet, see what's turned up. But as you can see, it's not a patch on what it was last year, but still the moths are coming in. Well, it's always nice when something you've never trapped before turns up at the light, and in this case it's this wormwood here. Now, wormwood is a moth. It's still rare to very uncommon in Nottinghamshire, but it's just about annual now, and has certainly increased over recent years. It's not the first specimen I've seen, because one was trapped in July of about 10 years ago, I think now, at the Idle Valley Nature Reserve, and brought to Dillis and myself for photographing for the website. But this is a new moth in terms of moths that I've trapped. So a nice little bit of excitement. It's not a colourful moth, but it's well marked, and it's really still its rarity value. Always nice to catch a newie. Keep getting bits and bobs of drizzle, which is annoying more than anything, but the moths are coming in. It's all very low numbers of what's now over 70 species, so I'm very pleased with that. Nothing terrifically unusual, but you never know here just what's going to drop in. I didn't expect wormwood, but there's a really good range of moths, but it's just that the numbers are down. It's also very noticeable how the range of species turning up after midnight changes. All of a sudden we've got 3 magpie moths on the sheet, and a couple of clouded borders have also dropped in as well. Very attractive moths. Always something flitting in now. It's a case of just keep scanning to see what moths have come in, and I've not had time to have a cup of tea since I started the trap. I need to rectify that. Now here's a quite beautiful moth, and if I just shield the MV light, just look at the sheen on that. This of course is a mother of pearl, and you can see just why it got the name mother of pearl. Very much like the inside of many seashells. A very common moth. They larvae feed on nettles, and so this will turn up in numbers at garden traps and in increased numbers at rural locations. A common species, but it's a quite beautiful moth when fresh like this. Fabulous things. Well, a few moths on the sheet, and nothing like we're used to at this site, of course. There's a few micros, I need to write down while I remember. Magpie moth just flitting around the light there. But there's not the normal number of other insects as well. Relatively few flies, certainly few compared to a visit fairly recently here. But we all know by now that the number of insects is well down. They will pick up. Here's a selection of the moths that we have on the sheet just above the light. You can see the elephant hawk moth there. That's the nice pink and olive green hawk moth, and green is also represented by large emerald. Just to the left of the elephant hawk moth is another green moth, and that's a green form of July high flyer with a common carpet just above that. And then further left is a moth that we've already looked at in the form of mother of pearl. It's a nice selection, even if there's not that many moths at all. Spoilt by last year, that's the problem. Now here's a lovely species, and you may well see this as you're wandering around fields or areas of long grass and flowers, because this is a latticed heath and it's a common day fly, but also turns up at light in good numbers in suitable habitat. It's another one of those species that doesn't like to settle down, or if it does settle down, it's never in a convenient place for filming. So I'm taking the opportunity here. Chances are it's going to get walloped by dark archers in a minute, but what a beautiful example of a moth. So that's latticed heath. It's a species which will turn up in your garden if you're trapping from home. Never give up hope from trapping in your garden. Hope that moths like this won't come along, because they certainly will. If you put the effort in, you'll get the rewards with this hobby. Well, it's 1:30 and they didn't forecast this, but it's now raining quite sharply and quite heavily, and so I think it's time to pack up. You never know whether to pack up in the rain or not, in case it's just a short shower. But then it could be something different, and packing up isn't much fun. With the generator being out in the open, I think it's best that I pack up. But it's been a fabulous few hours. Really enjoyed it, must admit. And a great range of moths, and a tub full of specimens to take back home to photograph and determine in the morning. But in the meantime, I'll be keeping an eye on the moths that are still coming into that sheet, and hopefully the rain may not come to anything. But it's been spitting for a while now, but it's coming quite sharpish. Time to pack up.